Hi, my name is Ali Duran with IBM Data Science and AI team. Today I'm going to walk you through the upgrade process for Planning Analytics Workspace Local to version 2.0.48. And I will also perform the upgrade process as well so that you can see what has changed in our installation policies or procedures and what kind of issues you might be running into during the upgrade process and how you can fix those issues. Now, what's new? If you have installed Planning Analytics Workspace before, there were a couple of requirements in previous versions of Workspace. These were Windows Server Core and the Docker engine, and these required you to download them externally from a separate website. These are no longer required, and they're included in our Planning Analytics Workspace installation files. Now, before we do any installation or upgrade, we always recommend to do a backup. Now, if you're in the versions 2.0.25 and prior, a recommended script to use is backup for upgrade.ps1. And if you're in later versions of Planning Analytics Workspace, we recommend you to use backup.ps1. We also received some complaints regarding MongoDB not stopping gracefully, especially when the Windows server is shut down. For that, in order to gracefully shut down the MongoDB, we added a new script, and I'll also show you how you can add it to your startup scripts or the shutdown scripts. We've also received some requests to automate some of the validation. For that, we've added a new script into our installation procedure, and this script checks for quite a bit of things that the administrators were doing before manually. These validation scripts are starting from validating what the Windows server is, all the way to checking what port is available or not in your environments. I've listed the scripts that we have here, but during the installation process, and I will also walk through these as well so you can see what kind of changes we have applied. Now, with that being said, I'm going to now start the installation procedure. For this upgrade, I'm going to be using a Windows Server 2016 Data Center Edition server with 64 gigs of memory installed, and it has about 12 processors on it with a version of Planning Analytics Workspace installed, Cognos installed, and then also Planning Analytics Server, which is TM1 server installed on it. To validate the version of Planning Analytics Workspace we have, let's go ahead and check that. I'm going to log into my Planning Analytics Workspace UI, and we'll take a look at our About IBM Planning Analytics section in here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see the version that we have is 2.0.44. From here on, we're going to upgrade to 2.0.48 version here. Okay. Let's close the workspace for now. The first thing I want to do, like I mentioned before, since I have the 2.044, I'm going to do a backup of the existing system. For that, I need to go to my installation directory and run a script off of there using PowerShell. I'm going to turn on PowerShell window. Make sure that you're running it in elevated mode as an administrator. If you're coming in for the first time, if you haven't run this before, and if you're not sure if you're the administrator on this server, my recommendation is for you to do a right click on it and run it as an administrator if this is your first time running this script. Okay, so we're here. Now I'm going to go in and find the installation directory that I have. In my case, I install my content on my E drive. Within my E drive, I'll search for the installation files or the directories that I have, and in my case, I have it under PAW2044. So I'm going to change the directory to that, and then check out my scripts directory underneath there. So if I do another list, you can see that there's a directory named scripts in here. You can go to that directory. Within the scripts directory, there are quite a few files, like I mentioned before. the initial file that I want to use is the backup.ps1. What this file does is it not only stops your existing container services, but also takes a backup of your existing Planning Analytics Workspace databases that we have inside Workspace, and then restarts the services once again. Now, just to show you what it looks like right now on my E drive under PAW2044, as you can see, there's no backup directory. The first thing the backup script does is it creates a backup directory in here, and then it also creates another directory or another folder in there with a time stamp, so that you can, if you need to go back to a version that you had an issue with or you had no issues with in the past, then you can always go back and pick one from your timestamped backups as well. All right, so I'm going to go in here and then run the backup script in here, the backup.ps1. This is going to take a little bit. So as you can see right now, it's doing a hot backup of the Mongo database. You can also see that the backup directory is now created, and underneath the backup directory, there's our timestamped backup. And in here, you're also going to see the files being created as the process continues. On the left-hand side, you're also seeing that it's stopping my existing containers that are associated with Planning Analytics Workspace. And it's taking a backup of all my databases, starting with the Mongo database in here. Then it's going to the couch and the other ones. Now this is going to take a little bit. I'm going to pause it in here, and then we'll come back to the installation procedures once this is completed. Okay, now our backup process is now complete in 141 seconds. And then it created these files, these 6 files that are required for me to do any restore if I need to during my upgrade process. Now these files are ready to go. I have them in my PAW2044 directory if I need to use them, and they're also under my backup folder as well. So we'll go back to our E drive once again, and then we'll find our installation directory. So that I have this folder called installs. Now, I've downloaded the files off of the Fix Central. If you have never done this before, the easiest and quickest way to do this is if you go and open up a browser, and in Google, if you search for IBM Fix Central, it's going to give the first thing that you will be seeing, and what you need to select is the IBM Fix Central link in here, and search for the product that you're looking for. In our case, it's going to be Planning Analytics. So you can see the options in here under Analytics Solutions. We have 2.0 installed. The platform we need is the Windows platform. And if you say continue in here, it's going to take you to Identify Fixes tab. And within this tab, if you know your individual fix ID, you can put it in there. If you don't know, you can always hit Browse for Fixes and say Continue. And it's going to also take us to all the releases for Planning Analytics that are done throughout these few years, and these are sorted by release date, descending, so the last is first. So we have Planning Analytics for Excel in here. This is the add-in that we have for Excel. Then we have Planning Analytics Workspace Local, which is the file that we're going to need. And then you also have the Planning Analytics Excel previous versions, along with the Planning Analytics Local server, which is the TM1 server that you're going to be needing. In our case, the installation is already done for Excel as well as the TM1 server, but if you're looking for them, they're going to be in here. All we need to download is this one. Now, since I have downloaded the file, I don't have to do it once again, so I'm going to just close it. But in the meantime, I've downloaded the file and extracted it into its own folder, just like this. It's a pretty big file. It's about 10 gigs, so you might be spending some time when you're downloading this. So that might be a good chance for you to take a coffee break at that point. All right, so we have the IPA Workspace Windows folder. I can start my script out of here. There's the start.ps1 script. We already have done our backup, and all we need to do is start. However, I don't want to enter my configuration information I had before one more time when I'm starting my administration tool. For that, what I can do is I can copy my environment files directly from my previous installation and paste it under my configuration directory in here. Okay, so I'm going to open up a new tab in here with a file explorer. I'll go to my E drive one more time, PAW2044 under my config directory. Now within my config directory, the file that I'm looking for is the paw.ps1 file. Now this file includes all the necessary information that I need in order to be able to connect to my servers and to my, if I'm using a CAM authentication, to my CAM authentication provider, namespace, etc. Now, if you look at the left-hand side of my screen, you're going to see that paw.ps1 exists in here. If I look at the config directory on my new installation directory, there is no paw.ps1 file. So what I can simply do is copy it from here and then paste it on this side. This way, all the information that I need is now housed on my new configuration directory. Now, if you want, you can also take a look at this file and then see what's in it. You can see that the TM1 location, applications location, authentication mode, Cognos server dispatch URI, as well as the namespace and a few other settings that we have applied are existing in here. All right, so I'm going to close this one and then close that as well. So all I need to do is go to this directory and then to my root of the IPA Workspace Win2048 installation files directory, and I run the start.ps1 file off of here. So I'm in the E drive still. I'm going to just go back to the root and then find my installations directory, and then within the installations directory I'm going to find the IPA Workspace Windows 2048. While I'm in there, all I need to do is run the /start. And what it's going to do, as I mentioned before in the presentation, there are some scripts that we have included with Planning-Analytics Workspace latest installations. And these scripts are to help the administrators automate all the validation checks that they were doing before. So with that, as soon as I hit start, it's going to start running these validations as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I hit start, and you can see on the left hand side there are some check marks, which is basically doing the checks that it requires you to do, such as verifying the Windows version. If there's any unsupported antivirus software on my machine, it validates for that. PowerShell module, is it installed or not? Is my system up to date? Have I done the Windows update recently or not? It validates for that. It also checks for the containers feature. If it's not installed, it installs it for you. Host networking service, PowerShell module, is it installed or not? Do we have a Docker service on the server itself or not? Along with any configuration requirements, additional configuration requirements necessary. Now, if there's an issue that it finds, which I have purposely introduced some issues on this server, you're going to see an X mark like this with a red sign on it, and some information that is that we're giving to you, such as this one says switch type was blank, so consider running https github.com. There's a tool in there called cleanup container host networking tool. So we're going to go ahead and copy this link over here. I'll do Control C. We'll also open up a new browser page. And the directory or the file that we're looking for is going to be under cleanup container host networking. It's a PowerShell script that we're looking for in here. I'm going to just paste it over here and then find the cleanup container host networking directory in GitHub. This is the official GitHub page for, again, Microsoft documentation that comes with Docker The file that I'm looking for is actually this one here, Windows Container Networking Logging and Cleanup 8.ps1. The way that I need to run this file is, since it's because of, let's take a look at our error message in here, network switch. It has to do a cleanup, and then that cleanup for network is going to be in here. Now, we need to run this command, but we also need to use the force delete all switches so that we can delete these containers or the network switches and then recreate them one more time. Now, there are a couple ways you can download this file, but the easy and right way that I have found so far is to select the file itself and then show it as a raw in here. Okay. Once I show it as raw, I'll do a Control A and then select everything in there. Control C. The way that I usually like to create my PowerShell files is using a Notepad++, and you can use your own editor with that, but that's my preference. So I'm going to open up Notepad++. I'll create a new file, and then I'll just paste it over here. Okay. Now all I need to do is File, Save As. Find the directory that I'd like to put this to. I usually put everything in my E drive. I'll select that. For the type, we need to use PowerShell, so it's going to be under P here. There's PostScript files. Here's a Windows PowerShell. Okay. And then the file name I want to give is, you can give any name in here, and I want to give cleanup. And it's going to pick up the cleanup.ps1. Let's select that as well. And then I'll save it on my E drive, on the root of my E drive actually, and then just save it in there. Okay. Now my file is saved now, as you can see. With the reason I picked Notepad++ is you can see your code much cleaner, and it's got a few options in here that you can utilize in order to be able to expand, collapse your code as well, which is kind of nice if you want to look at your code from different angles. So I'll close this one for now. We have that PS1 process that we have put into our E directory. So I'm going to go back in there. I'm going to just say E and then the backslash with that. Okay. E. Oh. Okay. Old habits. And all right. So we're on the root directory of E right now. Within E, we need to find that script that we have created, and the script's name was cleanup, so I'll just do a CL and then hit the tab so it can find the script. There's my cleanup.ps1 script. Now we said that we have to do a couple things in here, add a couple new parameters in there for it to run accurately, to delete all the switches that we have. For that, I'm going to go back to that script directory in here. Okay. Scroll down a little ways, and then find the cleanup, force delete all switches section in here. Okay, so this is the script that we need to run. I'm going to just say cleanup, force delete all switches. I'll just copy it over here, cleanup.ps1, and then I'll paste it over here. It's going to be cleanup, force delete all switches. All right, so let's go ahead and hit enter. What it's going to do now is it's going to go through my installation and look at my HNS data file, and then delete any switches that we have in there that I, by intent, added as an issue. And it's going to do a cleanup for that. And once it's done, it's going to tell us that it's completed. And then it's going to require us to restart our server itself. So let's wait for that to be done, and once it's done, I'm going to restart the installation procedure. Okay, the process is already run. It also tells me that I need to restart my system to complete the cleanup. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say restart computer here, and then I will restart the computer so that we can continue our installation process. All right, we're back on our server. We can continue our installation process. I'm going to open up the PowerShell window one more time. My server is still starting all the services, so it can be a little bit slow. I'm going to go to my Windows PowerShell window. Now that the process is complete, we can always go back to our E drive and then find our installation directory, and then find our IPA workspace folder in there, and I'll just run the start one more time. Now again, it's going to go through our validation process. It's going to check if everything is in there accurately, and it's going to verify a couple things, and if it finds an error, it's going to throw an X in front of us. Okay, so ensuring NAT networks, NAT networks internal prefix doesn't overlap with the external IP is the error that we got now. Define the fixed CIDR option in Docker's daemon JSON. Refer to this command line docker d. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So Docker daemon is the file that you're going to need in order to be able to make changes to your Docker environment. For instance, I use it to direct all my installation to a different drive, and I'll show you where it resides. So it's going to be under my C drive. Within C drive, there's the program data folder that I have, and underneath that we have Docker, and underneath Docker you have the config directory. In there you're going to see this daemon JSON file. Now, when you first install it, if you haven't done the JSON file before, all you need to do is create one, and then add the settings that you need to use. For me, I've already done it. All I need to do is edit it with my text editor. And then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you can also see what we're doing here. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we have the PowerShell window where it's saying, okay, so there's an overlap with the external IP, and the external IP is actually what I want to use in this case. And I'm going to make it stable or fixed by adding this value in here, or adding this parameter in here. So all I need to do is add another line in my daemon.json file, add that fixed-CIDR parameter, and then colon. We're going to add a double quote in here, and the IP address that I want to use was the fixed IP for external network. In this case, it's going to be 10.1.1.2. So I'm going to do 10.1.1.2 and then close my double quote. Now we'll save this one real quick. All right, and then afterwards I need to restart my Docker service. And there are a couple of ways you can do that. You can go to services, or you can just say restart service Docker in here. That's my Docker service restarted. Making sure that everything is running. Again, you can see that your CPU is going to start going up a little ways once the Docker service is being restarted, if your containers are not restarting as well. All right, so the service has restarted. So with the changes that I have implemented, and if you want to see if the service is running or not, you can always do either docker --version, for instance, and then you can see the version and build number for your Docker. Or you can go to your services and then search for Docker and then see if it's running or not. Now, the other thing that I'm going to also mention in here is the automatic delay option. If your Docker is not set up for automatic delayed start, then you can potentially run into issues if you also have, for instance, Cognos or NTM1 running on the same server. Occasionally, Docker cannot communicate, or the Planning Workspace server itself cannot communicate with your Cognos authentication layer or TM1 because it hasn't started yet. As a result, when you try to log into Planning Analytics Workspace, you might run into issues such as service not available, or I cannot connect to it, such as issues. To avoid that, I always recommend Docker to be set up to start in automatic delayed start option. And to do that, it's easy. If you do the right click and then check for properties in here, there's your startup type. Normally it's set up as automatic, but set it up as automatic delayed start, which is going to benefit you in the long run if you're running such as server restarts. If you're doing occasional server restarts, this is going to help you with that. Okay, so our service is started, everything is running right now. I'm going to continue with my installation process. Again, basically selecting that start process. If you're in the PowerShell window, and if your session is still continuing, you can always use the up and down arrows. That's also another option to find the command that you run before. So we'll continue to run this. It's now checking that the port 80 is free, checking that the port 443 is free, and it gives me a validation checks passed message in here on the bottom of my screen. If you can see, it's right here in the green, validation checks passed. So that's great. So now it's asking me if I want to install Planning Analytics Workspace, and the answer to that is going to be yes for me. And what it's going to do is it's going to start installing Planning Analytics Workspace. Now, this is going to take a while. This is the right time to take a coffee break if you like to. And once this is done, we'll come back and we'll continue our installation. All right, so our installation is now complete. We need to start the administration tool. For that, I'm going to just come in here and hit enter. And the administration tool is going to start. It's going to ask us to validate a couple things. Once it starts, okay, it's going to be running on 172 internal IP address 8888. Okay, all I need to do is scroll down in here and then accept the read through the license agreement and accept the first one. That's for IBM products, and then for non-IBM products we have another license that includes Mongo databases and other things that we offer with the product itself. Also say accept to that one, say OK, and it's going to take us to our administration setup page. Now, within the administration setup page, as you remember, we have the paw.ps1 file loaded or copied over from our previous installation. So that means that I don't have to enter the admin server URI, application server gateway URI, the dispatcher information, or the authentication namespace ID. We can always say validate to that to make sure that everything is running, to make sure that we can communicate with these servers. Looks like everything seems to be okay. And then we'll say OK here, and then we'll hit update to update our container files, and then start them once again so that we can continue to work in Planning Analytics Workspace. This is going to take a little bit, but in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at the Mongo database graceful stop option that we talked about earlier. Now, like I mentioned, we have received complaints or requests stating that Mongo database, when the Windows Server 2016 was shutting down, it wasn't shutting down gracefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you where this setting is. So we're going to go ahead and search for first IBM shutdown. Mongo database cleanly, maybe, and it's going to take us to our IBM knowledge base. So there's an option here, shut down Mongo database cleanly on Windows Server 2016. We'll go ahead and go into that, and then see what settings that are required in here. Okay, so it tells us where the script is. It's going to be under the scripts directory, shutdown.ps1. And then the procedure is to copy that shutdown PS1 to a permanent location on our system, run the group policy editor, make sure to add it to your shutdown scripts, and then basically just close it and return to where we were. All right, so let's go ahead and find that script first. It's going to be under my E drive, my installs directory, IPA workspace, and then it's going to be under scripts, and the one that we're looking for is shutdown.ps1. Okay, I'm going to just copy this one to a permanent location on my C drive, and I'm going to call this one, I maybe create a new folder in here. We'll call this one a MongoDB shutdown, maybe shutdown. Okay, and then we'll paste the file in here. Okay, so now we have our shutdown.ps1 file in there in our C drive under MongoDB shutdown directory. Now we can go and run our gp edit. .msc. There's our group calls policy. Let's see if it's going to run through here. Yep, it works. All right, so under group policy, so here you can see where you're supposed to be. It says expand computer configuration, select Windows settings. Here's our computer configuration. This is our Windows settings. Okay. And then the scripts, startup shutdown, that's where we need to select. And then we need to select the shutdown policy in here. Within our shutdown policy, we need to select the PowerShell scripts. And then there's no PowerShell script, so we're going to add a new script in here. Script name we're going to find on our C drive. Under Mongo database shutdown and shutdown.ps1, we'll say open to this one. There's no parameters here, so we can say OK. All we need to also say is say apply, say OK, and we're all set. So next time the server restarts, it's going to stop your Mongo database gracefully. Okay, so now that this is complete, we can go back to our installation, see where we are with that. Okay, configuration successful update is still on that page. Let's go and check our status. Looks like our services are running right now. CPU percentage is in almost good state. 5.33% is the largest CPU usage. That's our content store. That sounds pretty reasonable. Okay, let's also go ahead and validate our Planning Analytics Workspace installation and make sure that our books and bookmarks, everything we have, are in good place. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and select the Planning Analytics installation directory on the port 80, which is IBM demos for me. I'm going to log in with my username and my password. The first thing I'm going to validate is going to be the version number of my Planning Analytics Workspace instance. For that, I'm going to hit the Help menu and then hit About. And on the bottom side of my screen, you can see that it's now upgraded to 2.0.48, which is good. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open one of the books that I have, any of the books that I can select. I'm going to select one from this folder here. I'm going to scroll down, select one of the books that I have called Head Count. Just open that one up. Maybe make my screen a little bit more smaller so we can see everything in one place. Okay. So here's my book that I have generated. Looks like everything seems to be working. I can switch between years, my data changes, so that means that I'm communicating well with my Planning Analytics Workspace server. So if you have any bookmarks or any of the collections that you have, anything that you have collected, they will appear in here as well. So those would be the initial checks that I would do. But with that, looks like our Planning.Analytics Workspace installation is now complete. We can now allow the end users to come in and start using Planning.Analytics Workspace. Now, this was the upgrade procedure and process that I wanted to walk through. And as we said previously, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and take care.